start. My first question is really about why you chose to do this film and why now. I think we were talking earlier with Marcia and Marquise at ESPN Films, and they were saying for the most part, a lot of their stories they've done in the past have been like things where it's like, it's all in the history.
We had a Zoom, and there was a point in my life where everything was coming back full circle. From, first picking up a ball to, on that court to then going back to that court with my family. From coming into the league young, hungry, rookie, having a child the next year, now we're having another child. So it was just kind of those full circle moments that I think are important. And, selfishly, I loved capturing these moments because for me personally, with my kids, that's unbelievable content for me personally. And then in the future, hopefully they'll be able to see, our journey a little bit and understand it a little better.
Specifically with Layla and the travel and having her grow up around the game. I mean, obviously, I've been following your career literally since high school. We're around the same age, and so it's amazing to see her journey and coming up. And I remember like when I was living in LA and going to Sparks games, and she was just around, right? It was like, I'd only really seen that back in the day. I remember on the Celtics, like Eddie House's son was like in those famous photos on those famous teams. But yeah, talk about what it's been like for her, and now obviously, with the younger brother and everything. Yeah.
I always said, we're a team from the beginning. Like my team doesn't want me if I can't bring my daughter overseas or wherever we're at. And so much so that at 3 years old, it didn't make the story, but at 3 years old, Layla was like, we just got back from the Olympics, and I was feeling her backpack, and I'm like, it's a little heavy for preschool. So I open it up, and in it is a gold medal. And I'm like, Layla, like, dude, and she's like, but we won. Like, we won the game. And so that's how much she felt like she was a part of the journey. And for me as a parent, to be able to bring my daughter along in all of it, and to not just see the good, to not just celebrate the wins, but to celebrate when you have to get back up, or when there's a struggle, or for her to see like, we just got back from a back-to-back and now we got to go lift, or we got to go to practice, or, for her to understand, it's a process, and it's a journey. And so I think it's been great for her. And then also for me, I've learned so much from her, just in terms of winning from losing, showing that like, you can be a father and be an amazing basketball player. You can be a mother and be an amazing basketball player. And we throw around, mental health and how to make that better. But it's also being yourself and being able to be happy and be separate from the what. Like, yes, I'm a basketball player, but the who is I'm a mother, I'm a teammate, I'm a coach, I'm a, whatever you are.
What did Pat mean to you? I mean, you obviously talk about it in the film, but like, what's a story that, you can tell about you and Pat for these guys? Maybe one that, most people don't know.
Well, Coach Summit wasn't just a coach. She was a teacher. She was an educator. She was a mom. She was a motivator. She was everything. And I say that there's very few people that do what they say, right? And living in, especially today, being able to have the impact that she's had on my life still, like, there's still to this day things that I'm like, all right, coach, I got it, type of thing. And I would say the best story to describe her was I was a know-it-all kid, right? Junior year, I think it was sophomore year actually. Know-it-all kid, 19, 20 years old. Go to practice, maybe not giving the most effort, maybe going through the motions a little bit. So she kicks me out of practice. Okay, like get out of my practice, whatever. So I go in the locker room. I always did individuals before and after practice. So I go in the locker room, I'm waiting for everybody to get off the court to go back. And so she's like, no, she walks through the tunnel. She's like, no, get out of here. You're not allowed on the court. Like, get out. So I go back to my, to my room, and I'm like, all right, what am I going to do to show and prove to her, that I'm ready, that I'm going to be prepared. I was like, okay, I'm going to get to the gym. We had 6 a.m. practice the next day because some of us had an 8 a.m. class. I'm like, I'm going to get to the gym early. I'm going to be in full sweat. I'm going to have worked out all this stuff. So I pull up to TBA, and her light's on in her office. Right? She'd been there already. She was sitting at her desk. So it's like, I'm trying to teach her something and show her something. And again, she shows why she's the great Pat Summitt is that she constantly, continuously, despite having 8 championships, being one of the winningest coaches ever, does the little things, which is show up early, put in extra work, and put in the time.
How does a director, a crew, how do you navigate to make sure that you feel comfortable in those spaces and not overstep, but also capture the perfect moment for viewers?
It's getting to know somebody, getting to know their kids, getting to know what makes them laugh, what they like, what their coffee order is, right? And I think that we started off, Joey and I, it was just her and I. And then we slowly kind of introduced people. And through that slow process, we were able to figure out the match and the energy of it.
I grew up in Michigan, right? We had the shock, but there was no exposure to women's basketball until you popped up on ESPN for me, right? And so my kids go to the Fever game here, and there's a normalcy to the women's game that you have, I'd say in some ways, mothered into a maturity that we see today. Like, what do you understand your role to be to the women's game now? Talk about a blueprint. You got a vision for it going forward. What's your relationship to it and your responsibility to it if you want to see yourself in that?
I think all of us have responsibility in this. Like, once you start playing, you want to have the same opportunities. I look at my daughter, I look at my son, I look at my nephew, my nieces. I want them to all have the same opportunity. And in order to do that, I think it's investment, it's business. My daughter and I are owners in Angel City, so soccer. We're hoping to get into basketball soon. But I think it starts at the ownership level, honestly. I think that's my contribution. Yes, I still want to dribble the ball. But that time is coming to an end, and I understand that. And so it's like, what's next? What's the transition? How do you help basketball from a different perspective? And, you know, I think I am in the position now where I see the way that Cynthia Cooper and Tina Thompson and Lisa Leslie looked at me. I'm looking at the next generation in that way, where it's like, you got to treat it like this is your baby. You got to treat it right. But honestly, it takes you too. Like, you taking your kids, you know, as a dad, 2 games, you know, you exposing, because now it's crazy to me. Like, my nephew wore my jersey for Jersey Day. He didn't wear his dad who played 10 years in the NBA. He wore my jersey. And it's like, young boys and young guys have grown up with women in leadership positions for 25, 27, 30 years. And so now it's like acceptable, it's okay, it's celebrated. And so there's not this hesitation behind it. I think that's the problem, is the hesitation. Like, on set today, you know, we were talking Sabrina, Steph, and everybody wants to, is this the battle of the sexes? Is this what it is? And it's like, I think you constantly, as a women's basketball player, have to constantly prove yourself in so many different ways. And it's really like, just come and watch our game. You know, there's going to be some that love it, just like I'm not really a big hockey fan, you know, but there's some that are going to love it, but there's a lot of people that prevent themselves from even welcoming it because of the idea of women playing sports. And that's the next step, is growing the professional game. Everybody aspires to play there. I think it's some of the best basketball, but what's missing? And you know, colleges, you have these long-standing bonds. I mean, I still in an airport in Atlanta see somebody from Tennessee, and it's like, hey, like, Rocky Top. That's how it is. And so now, how do we build that with, like, a Yankees or like a Chicago Bulls? Or my daughter she doesn't even know she don't know football. She's like, there's 4 downs? How many downs? She's a Bears fan. She just knows that. So how do we do that within women's professional sports? And I think it's going to take all of us, you know, and it's going to take time, but I'm just a big believer in making it better and leaving what you did better than you came into it.